So, what's the bet that I actually get this show up and published? Like, what's the likelihood? What's the percentage likelihood that I actually do it all by myself? I'm also wondering what the line is on how long a solo show goes. Because, on the one hand, I can talk forever. But on the other hand, my anxiety about talking forever is gonna cause me to talk fast and to cut things short. So I think Vegas would set it at 35 and a half minutes. I think that's what we're looking at. Also, I have no clue where to look, but it is what it is. Welcome to the Sober Sports Podcast with sober takes from not so sober people. I am Trey. There is no Trent. We are sad about that. Well, I am sad about that. I'm happy sad. I'm sad because my boy is not here to get this good conversation in about the hottest sports topics going on. But I'm also happy because I get to talk about whatever I want for however long I want. And so you gonna hear hot takes from me, and I'm excited to get this going. But first, before we do, what you sipping on? And I am rolling with Corona. Corona tonight. I love Mexican beer. It's a very hot day here in sunny San Diego. 95 degrees at least all day, pretty much all over the city. And a good Mexican beer, man, it just reminds you of summer. They're easy to drink. I got the quote unquote diet one, so it's only like 2.6 carbs. If it's only 2.6 carbs, I don't know what else is in this thing, but it's really good and refreshing. So that's what we're sipping on today with the Corona. So excuse the breaks because I'm going to be drinking and talking at the same time. I have an exciting show lined up for you. We got the NBA playoff picture is shaped up pretty much for the most part, so I'm going to get into that. Also going to talk about fall college football. A lot's going on with that, with conferences canceling and others still on the fences. And then we are going to talk a whole lot of UFC 252, Daniel Cormier, Stipe Miocic. It's going to be huge, and I'm really excited to get into that. But first, before I get into the big topics, I just want to quickly send a shout out to The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, the people's eyebrow, the people's elbow. This dude, if you haven't heard, bought the XFL. Like a man just purchased not a football team. He purchased a whole league, and it looks like the purchase cost was around $15 million, which seems a little bit cheap for a whole league. But like this dude, The Rock, is out here playing ballers in real life. Like this is what he's doing. He's out here buying leagues and stuff. And it actually just came out. I saw today that he was the highest paid actor in Hollywood this past year. So dude clearly has the money to do it. He clearly has ambitions. I know he's hosting the Titan games online. He has his tequila. I'm gonna have to get that on the show at some point and taste that because I do like tequila. And he seems like an overall nice guy, a good guy. And I'm happy for The Rock to be winning. I'm happy for him to be living out his dreams. If you don't know, he played college football at the University of Miami. He's a Hurricane, and so that's his roots, and that's something that's special to him, and to be able to achieve that after grinding for so long, working so long, and you never know how your dreams end up. I know he dreamed about being a professional football player, and that didn't happen, but instead he owns a whole damn football league, and I think that's really dope and something to be said about that man's work ethic and just how the turns of life take you. So shout out to The Rock, and that was super dope for him doing that. NBA playoff picture is coming into full focus. We have all but it looks like one matchup set for Monday. So the playoffs start Monday. We get a break this weekend. No real sports going on this weekend other than UFC 252. So I want to break it down, go over the different matchups, and just give a little highlights of what I think about who's going to be playing and just the bubble so far. So in the East, we have Milwaukee with the 1 seed, Orlando Magic with the 8 seed. Toronto Raptors are coming at the 2, playing the Brooklyn Nets at the 7. Boston and Philly at the 3 and 6, and then Miami and Indiana with them 4 and 5. This is the Eastern Conference. So all 8 seats are set, and this looks really, really exciting. I mean, I go straight to that Miami Indiana matchup. You got Jimmy Buckets for the Heat leading them, and then you got Victor Oladipo, the most interesting person in the world, and T.J. Warren, who has been killing it inside the bubble. And him and T.J. and Jimmy kind of got this little beef, and so it'll be exciting to see them go head to head in the first round. Boston, Philly. I know Philly is, the process ain't really working out. Their stars are hurt as they usually are. And so it has a little bit of the luster off of it, but I think it'll still be a strong series, something that we want to see, a matchup that we've seen already. And so it's exciting to get those going. Man, I wish KD and Kyrie were playing. This Toronto-Brooklyn matchup would be so saucy. If so, unfortunately, we don't have that, but I think Brooklyn's been playing well, and they'll still be able to give Toronto a good showing in the second round. And then Milwaukee is going to run all over Orlando. They just, they're not a very good basketball team. 8 teams got to make it. They made it. It is what it is. This should be a tune-up for Giannis and company, so hopefully they come out of it healthy and unscathed. Hopefully he doesn't headbutt anybody else. That would be really cool with him. And so, but looking at those matchups, man, those are exciting. Boston, Philly, Miami, Indiana, I know I'll be watching those. Definitely, those will be hotly contested. And so I feel like we're getting a nice playoff picture in the Eastern Conference. Going over to the West, we have all of our matchups except for the 8 seed, and that's a playoff game. So we have a the play-in game. The 8th seed right now is Portland. They're going to be playing against the Memphis Grizzlies. Remember, they had that weird rule that if you finish within 4 games of the 8th seed, then there would be a play-in game. And so that's what we have, and that's going to be tomorrow morning. Saturday morning. My days are all messed up. But we get the Grizzlies versus Portland. I think that'll be exciting. Dame's been crushing it. And, we got on the other side, Memphis Grizzlies, you got Ja Morant, the young killer. And so I'm excited to see those two go head to head. I think Trailblazers too much. You got C.J. McCollum, you got Melo, of course, coming in with their medium 3. I think they're just going to be too much. I think they're too focused. I think they're too experienced and just have too much scoring and high powered offense to be able to stop the Grizzlies. But hey, never count out Ja. He's going to go in. He's not going to be afraid of them boys whatsoever. And so I'm excited to see him be able to compete at this level. I think it's something exciting. I don't necessarily like the play-in game idea because it discounts the rest of the season, right? Like, you play X many games and then you have one game with it all on the line. But, hey, it provides a fun scenario for us to see. And so I'm excited to see that winner of that series, that play-in game is going to play the Los Angeles Lakers, who have been struggling as of late on the offensive side, which isn't that great, but defense has been pretty solid. So, we'll see who gets the 8 seed, and then I'll be able to talk more about that series in particular. The 2 and the 7 gives us the Clippers and the Mavericks. I think that's going to be tough for the Clippers, man. Man, that boy Luka can play, man. That's all I'm gonna say. That boy Luka can play, and so it's going to be exciting to see him go up against Paul George, go up against Kawhi, and see what he can do on this level. Obviously, that Porzingis too. I think the Clippers will come out on top, probably 4-2, but it's going to be an exciting series nonetheless. That the 3-6 matchup, we got Denver, Utah again. Yo, who's going to win this one? I mean, do we really think that Denver is that much better than Utah? Does anybody really know all the players on either of those teams? I mean, it is Denver and Utah, and so I'm excited to see that Spider Mitchell get down and see what he does in the playoffs this year. And I think Utah can do it. I would not be surprised if they got that dub in this series. And then we got Oklahoma City and the Houston Rockets, and this is the awkward bowl because we have Russell Westbrook, coming to play his old squad, Oklahoma City. And, because, Oklahoma City, they had, and, after you have CP3, right? CP3 got the trade out of LA from the Clippers. He forced his way into Houston, and they tried that thing for a couple of years, and that thing didn't work out too well. And then they went off and shipped him off over to Houston. to Oklahoma City for Brody, and Brody was supposed to be the franchise. He was supposed to, have Oklahoma City on his back, and they swapped, and now they're here, gonna play each other. I think it's very surprising that Oklahoma City performed this well. I think no one expected them to perform this well. 44-27, man, that's crazy, right? Brand new team, basically. CP3 obviously had injury issues the last couple years. That's what kept Houston back a little bit, but he's been healthy. He's playing like the old CP3. CP3 he is my favorite player. LeBron is my guy, but CP3 is my favorite player, and so I'm excited to see what he can do in the playoffs. And I don't trust Houston. I never have. So I do think they have more talent. I do think they eventually win because of that. But you know what I mean? Hey, give me CP3 in this young OKC team at least to get 2 or 3 games. And so, hey, we got playoff basketball. That's not something that I thought that would be happening. I just saw that in the last round of COVID testing, they didn't have any tests, and so that's a positive and great thing. And so it's just cool to see, especially as as I talk about our next topic. And it's a good actually segue into the next topic of what has to be done in a successful to be successful in these times, in with COVID going on, to run a successful sports league, to run college football, to run fights weekly, what the UFC is doing and what has to be done. And the bubble is working. It's working. People are not getting sick, and it looks like we're going to be able to play this thing out, which is really dope. Now, talking about playing and if we're going to be able to play even at all, we're looking at college football, right? I've been very skeptical about MLB playing. I've been very skeptical about NFL playing and the different things that they're going through, and I haven't talked much about college football really because I thought it was a foregone conclusion that we weren't going to have college sports. Most of the fall sports canceled, or at least made the decision to move their fall sports to the spring earlier. What we weren't really talking about, college football, is kind of going under the radar. And the big conferences never announced that they weren't, even though students are pretty much not coming back to campuses around the nation, right? There was still talks of football being played. But this week things got a little hot. We had players. It was really cool to see actually players speaking out about the conditions that they're having on campus, about the safety measures, about just being in the situation, forced to be on campus, forced to be further exposed and not having what it looked like. The testing procedures were kind of wonky. They're not getting all the information that they wanted. And we had two kind of factions. We had Players United, which was a faction of 11 out of the 12 Pac-12 teams. So at least one representative from each 11 Pac-12 teams. And they submitted a letter a unified letter to the conference stating their demands and what they needed to happen for them to feel comfortable playing football. We also had We Want to Play, another faction, more loosely based, right? The social media, quote unquote, activism. But you still have prominent players. So you had Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback from Clemson in the ACC, right? And you also had Justin Fields, the quarterback of the Ohio State Buckeyes, right? So you have two of the primary teams, primary contenders. Their star players and future NFLers are, behind this movement. Basically what the players are saying is like, hey, wait a second, what about us, right? We're talking about playing football. We're talking about playing, the game and bringing that back, but we don't feel safe. We're already forced to, be on campus and do extra work and not get paid for it, right? And we're also putting our body on the line for the sake of college sports and all the pageantry and blah, 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 with the hopes that some of us get to make big money in the NFL professionally. But most of us, hey, this is the last stop, right? The least y'all can do is protect our health, given, what's going on. This is literally all they're saying. Like, we need better procedures. We need better testing policies. We need to be safe. We've seen numbers of different teams that have had outbreaks already, and those things either barely make the headlines or they get swept under really quick. And so we know that college football really isn't, looking out for the players. A lot of conversation about college football activism has revolved around compensating players, right? We know college football is a multi-billion-dollar business, right? And we know that college athletes, and we're talking big-time college sports, so men's college basketball and football, Division I football, right? Lots of money is being made, but not by the folks who are actually putting their bodies on the line. And they're told to do so because they're getting a scholarship, right? They're getting all these extra perks, but we know there's been a lot of research on this topic. I've done a lot of research for this topic, and shout out to the scholars who have guided me on this. But Sean Harper at USC has done a report the last few years, and we know that in college sports, big time college sports, that black men are overrepresented on these teams, right? So if you what it looks like is the percentage of black men on the football teams and the basketball teams versus the percentages of black men on campus in the regular student body, right? That's kind of the marker to look at. And what he says is, perhaps nowhere in higher education is the disenfranchisement of black male students more insidious than in college athletics. What does that mean? Is that, this is exploitation to the fullest, to the absolute fullest. We talk about, in higher education, achievement gaps and being able to get black kids into school, particularly black men into school. But look at the football teams, look at the basketball teams. We can get them in, but it's for a particular reason, right? And they're going to school because obviously they have unique talents that are marketable, that are profitable for these institutions. That's why they are there. That's why we are still talking about playing football in the fall, given a global pandemic, right? And so it's cool to see these players who for years have been told, oh no, it's for amateurism, oh no, it's for all these reasons why we make up and we know it's all about money, but are starting to realize their agency. Scott Brooks, he's at ASU now, Arizona State, my alma mater, Fielder Fork, but he did some research when he was at the University of Missouri. It's 2016, I believe, and there was a student protest group going on already. They were protesting some of the racist events and policies going on at University of Missouri. And when a few of the prominent football players decided to join, that's when things changed. These dudes said that they weren't going to play, and stuff happened, right? I believe the university system president got fired, and I think the chancellor of the school got demoted. Folks lost their jobs because the players said, hey, we're not playing if our demands aren't met. And so that's what we're seeing with Players United. We want to play. The players are recognizing their agency, and they are having the courage to speak up and utilize their power, because we know that the only reason that college football is a multi-billion-dollar business is because of those kids, because they're unique talents. And so they are recognizing that and not being afraid to speak up. And I think that's great to see. And I think that speaks well for what happens with college athletics and activism going forward, because they canceled the football season, y'all. At least the Pac-12 and the Big Ten did, and those are the two of the biggest ones. They're two of the five Power Five conferences. Now we're still waiting on, as of this recording, the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. Right, so we're getting more into the South, more and more into that conservative country. And I'm just going to read to you a list of the universities. This is coming from Sean Harper's latest report in 2018. It's the 25 universities where black male student athletes are most overrepresented. And let's see if we can find a little trend here about who is still considering playing football at this point. University of Florida, Auburn, Mississippi State, Louisiana State, University of Louisville, University of Georgia, University of South Carolina, University of Alabama, University of Missouri, and North Carolina State University. All of those, well, that's the top 10, right? These are the universities where black males are most overrepresented on the football fields and basketball courts. I believe 8 of those are in the SEC. Yep. 2 are in the ACC, right? We can see what's going on, right? Ohio State is on this list, and they, like I said, they are part of the Big Ten, and they are not playing football this year. But you can see the trend here, right? The schools that rely most heavily on black talent, on black dollars, are the ones that are still hanging on. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with football and see where it goes. But again, I'm happy to see this trend. I'm happy to see players recognizing that they have power and having the courage, I think that's a big deal because there's a lot that can come back on them. You know, we saw players at Oregon State. A young man was dismissed, and largely due to what it looks like his participation in Players United, right? And that's a problem. That's a problem when dissenting views are put down and when that power structure is off. And so I'm happy to see the players doing their thing, and I'm excited to see where this goes when it comes to player activism. UFC 252. I am so excited about this. And when I tell you, the more that I watched, the more that I got excited. So we have UFC 252, Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic. This is the trilogy bout. This is the rubber match. These two men have fought to 2 knockouts. So Cormier beat Stipe he knocked him out to win the first one. Stipe came back, knocked out Cormier to get the second one, and now we are here. I'm going to spend a good amount of time talking about this fight, but I'm excited to see that this fight is happening, and it's going to be a really good one. Also on this card, on the main card, we got Sugar Sean O'Malley, undefeated. If you haven't seen this dude, if you haven't heard this dude, I suggest that you watch him. He wasn't the co-main, and somehow he got boosted up there, but this dude is a rising star, and I'm excited to see him going against Marlon Vera, who is tough, who is really tough, and so that's going to be a good matchup. We also have Junior Dos Santos versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and I'm going to get into that one first because we have 2 heavyweight matchups on this main card, and you know, either you love or you don't like the heavyweights, right? You see some heavyweight fights where they kind of lay on each other and wrestle and bump bodies for 15 minutes till they get tired and see some whack strikes. But you also see the short ones where someone gets knocked out really quick. But I appreciate high level strikers in the heavier weight divisions, and I think right now the heavyweight division there's a lot going on. There's a lot of great athletes, and you see by these 2 guys, Rozenstruik is 10-1, right? His only loss coming from Francis Ngannou. Junior Dos Santos, he's a former champ. He's 21-7. He's riding a 2-fight losing streak. He also lost to Francis Ngannou, lost to Blades as well. But this dude is always dangerous. He's knocked out Derek Lewis. He's had the title before, right? I honestly, this is kind of a pick'em for me. I think Rozenstruik is nasty, right? That Ngannou knockout, he got knocked out in like 7 seconds, I think it was. We didn't really get to see much from that. I would like to see them run it back. I think on another night he can give Ngannou a chance. That Overeem, you know, we know he can go the distance, right? Because that Overeem fight, that was 5 rounds. That was 5 grueling rounds, and he eventually knocked him out in the last 10 seconds of that fight. And then when he got is it Andrei Arlovski, who got beat this weekend, right? But that first round knockout that he had against him, he's a dangerous dude. I don't know if he has enough experience to fight a dude like Junior Dos Santos. Obviously, Overeem has so much combat experience, but he's never won a belt, right? Junior Dos Santos has held the belt. He's been the baddest man on planet before, and this dude still has knockout power. I think he's only like 34, 35. I thought he was much older than that. He's when I heard him in a talk this week, he said he's looking to be the champion again. Now, I didn't realize he still had those aspirations, and honestly, I think if he gets this win and does it in a good fashion, he can beat anybody in the division. He really can. And so he gets on a nice little winning streak. I think he can be back in contention again. And actually, I think I just talked myself into a JDS victory here because I just think his experience in these big fights and what this means and where his mindset is going to be enough to put him over Rozenstruik. I think, again, Rozenstruik is a dangerous dude. I would like to see him against any of the top 5 or 6 in the division. And there's a lot of exciting, things to be had there. But I just think his experience here isn't going to be enough to beat the former champ. Going to the co-main, Marlon Vera, Sugar Sean O'Malley, right? Marlon Vera's been on the tear. He technically lost his last bout to Zhang Yadong. I think he won that fight. I think a lot of other people think he won that fight. This dude is a dangerous dude. I know he has 6 losses. That A lot of them came earlier in his career, and losses in MMA really don't mean that much. It's what have you done for me lately, and what he's done lately has been impressive. In a couple wins and in all his fights, but he has taken down a few consecutive victories before that one, and so he's a tough dude. This is not a gatekeeper situation. I think this is a significant step up in competition for O'Malley, and O'Malley's a young dude. He's only fought 12 professional fights. He had a significant layoff because of some USADA stuff, but he's back in it, and he has been knocking dudes out. He is a lanky 135er. I believe he's 5'11", and making weight for him apparently isn't a big issue, and so he's going to be long. He's going to, he still has quickness, and clearly with his last two beautiful knockouts in the first round, he has the power at this weight class, and I think he's going to be difficult for anybody at this weight class. I know he had a little thing going back and forth with my boy Cody Garbrandt, and so I would love to see that fight, but Cody's moving down. He's getting the 125 title shot, which will be awesome to see. But until then, Sugar Marlon Vera, I think Sean O'Malley is special. I think this kid has something special. I've seen a lot of fighters. I pride myself on seeing these dudes and recognizing them early and getting to see their first fights in the UFC. I remember seeing John Jones' first fight. I remember seeing Conor McGregor's first fight and seeing, wow, these dudes are special. And I think that Sugar Sean has the it factor, right? Yeah, he has the hair. Yeah, he has the tats. He does a whole bunch of Twitch, YouTube streaming, all kinds of stuff. But this dude can fight, and this dude has a beautiful right hand. He has confidence. He's not really cocky. He seems really cool. I like his style. He seems way more flamboyant than he is. He's just very confident in his abilities, and it sounds like from his interviews he really loves to do this. And that right hand is nasty, and so it's the fight game. Anybody can win. Anything can happen. I think this does go the distance. I don't think Sean's able to put him out. Vera has a chin. This dude hasn't. I don't think he's ever been finished. I don't quote me on that, but I don't think he's ever been finished. And so that's gonna be tough, right? You got to finish a dude who's never been finished. But Sugar's he's a much larger man. His right hand finds that home, specifically finds the chin of his opponents over and over again. And I just think he's going to be too much. I think he's going to be too much for most dudes in this division. Unless you can get him on the ground and do some work, which, hey, Vera is a black belt. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So that could be the strategy going in this weekend. But O'Malley's length, his length and his ability to move, he's very athletic, he's very quick. I just don't see Vera getting to his legs. I don't see him being able to drive him down. O'Malley's wiry, but he's strong, and I just think he's able to have a dominant 3-round decision win. And hopefully we see a bigger fight from him. I think after he wins this fight, we see him start to fight, the top guys in the division, and we see what he really got and see if he really has that championship medal. But this will be a very entertaining fight. But, man, so I'm not a Daniel Cormier fan. I have spent a lot of time disliking Daniel Cormier, and I'm not going to lie, I'll admit it, kind of hating on Daniel Cormier. Biggest reason why is I'm a John Jones guy. Y'all know this. John Jones is my dude. And so if you got beef with John Jones, you got beef with me. However, I will not take a man's credit away from him. And Daniel Cormier has, if you lose twice to John Jones and you lose once to Stipe Miocic, that's it. That's all. That's the only losses that you got on your record, right? He's beaten so many top dudes, and this is his swan song. I know there's been rumors of him fighting Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar ain't gonna come back. He's still on the roids and whatnot, so he ain't gonna get any USADA testing by then. I know there's also rumors about the John Jones mega fight that we've been, kind of hearing about. John Jones moving up to heavyweight, that is. That fight doesn't really interest me, and it sounds like from DC, it don't really interest him either, and I'm glad about that because I think this raises the stakes for this fight even more. There's also been rumors of Stipe walking away after this fight. I mean, this dude, he's beaten Overeem. He's beaten Junior Dos Santos. He's beaten Ngannou. Like, who else is there for him to beat? He's beaten Cormier. Like he's the man. He has the most title defenses in the heavyweight division. He's a double champ in the division. He beats Cormier. This dude is the greatest heavyweight ever. There's no ifs, ands, buts or about it. Same with DC. Like he beats Stipe and he's able to do this. He walks off the greatest heavyweight champion there is, and I think for a guy like Daniel, he's a former two-time Olympian, right? I know he runs the Gilroy Wrestling Club over in Gilroy. Shout out to the Garlic Capital of the world. For all that I don't like about him, he seems like a really good and positive dude. And most guys don't get to write their story. They don't get to write the ending to their story, right? We see, fighters being carried out on their shield. We see, Joe Montana playing for the Chiefs and whatnot. That's not fun. That's not a fun thing to do. And so Daniel Cormier, especially with having those losses against John Jones and kind of having that asterisk on him being the champ with the light heavyweight belt, this, I think, for his legacy, which I know is very important to him, would be huge, and he would be able to walk out on top. And that's the only thing is I heard his interview with on Monday on his radio show, and he said, there's not more pressure that he's putting on himself from this. And I just don't know how that can be. I know that he's been training. His training camp has gone a whole lot better than the last one. The last fight, he was dealing with some back issues. I rewatched that fight. Man, that was painful to watch. It was painful to watch. DC didn't wrestle at all. They were basically just trading shots for the first 3 rounds until Stipe got him with the body shot and hurt him. And Daniel said it. He said, hey, I did the thing that I've never done in my career, my professional fighting career, and that was I got hurt. I didn't fight back. And that's exactly what happened. He got caught with that rib shot once, and that was pretty much the end of the fight. Now, to his credit, he was getting the better part of those exchanges for the first 3 rounds. You look at Stipe's face after it. Stipe was not, he wasn't bobbing and weaving. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think he was putting out that much damage. And so it's interesting because, watching him bet it, hearing the interviews for the last couple weeks, both guys think that they are by far the better fighter. Like both these dudes in their heads are going into this fight thinking, nah, I'm going to whoop this dude's ass. And there's no question about it. Like each thinks that they are significantly better and that each fight is proof of that. In the first fight, DC got the knockout. Stipe says it was a fluke. That was a fluke punch. I don't think so. I think he got caught with a very solid punch. And again, looking at the evidence from the second fight, DC was able to land those punches, nonstop on him. Only thing is he just didn't get finished. He didn't get that one clean one, right? On the flip side, DC is looking at that second fight and saying, I didn't fight my best fight. I wasn't prepared coming in. I had a lot of distractions outside of it. And those could be, quote unquote, I don't know why I just said quote unquote, but excuses. But the dude's back was messed up. He didn't have a real camp, and he did have distraction. Now that's his fault. He didn't show Stipe the proper respect that he should have, and that's on him, and he recognized that. And so what he's doing now is going back to the drawing board and really able to focus and have a true camp and come in his best shape and fight his best. That's what he wants. He wants to fight his best fight and walk out with, whatever decision that is. He feels like in the second fight was not a true representation of his fighting abilities, and he feels like the first fight was with a knockout. And hey, it's going to be a good one. Stipe, like I said, I went back and watched Stipe's fights, his last few fights, and this dude can just fight, man. He is just a fighter, and he has dominated some of the biggest killers. I mean, that Overeem fight, the Dos Santos one. I mean, I just talking about Dos Santos being a killer and probably knocking out Rosenstruck on the same night. Stipe's already beat his ass. And so, Stipe has proven that he is not only tough, but he is a great fighter. And so I'm excited to see this. This is, I think, I wish it was getting more hype. I wish MMA was bigger because this is, we're looking for, boxing is where, we look at the heavyweight division as being the prize fighter, right? And we got some cool heavyweights going on right now with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua and all them. But, that's it. We got this heavyweight division over here at UFC that has some all-time great fighters, including two that can be considered the greatest of all time. And these two dudes are going to fight. Two greatest of all time contenders are going to fight Saturday night, and that just needs to have more hype. That needs to have. I mean, I wish we could do this. Yeah, they're doing it in Vegas at the Apex, but this is one I would want to see in person because you don't get to see this all the time. And so I'm excited to see this fight. I'm gonna pick Daniel Cormier. I do think he is the better fighter. I think he has a better all-around skill set. I think he can trade with pretty much anybody, and obviously his wrestling. That's what I'm going to see. That's where the interesting thing is going to be, is if DC goes to his wrestling. I think he is the apex. Octagon is a little bit smaller than the typical one, which means the walls are closer, right? Which means there's less space to move around, so that's going to be more advantageous for elite level wrestler or grappler, which DC is. Stipe has good wrestling. He's not a simp on his back. He's not a simp to take down, and so that's going to be tough. Can DC take him down? Can DC wear him out a little bit first and then box him up? Is what's going to be interesting. I think DC gets the win. I don't think it goes the full 5 rounds. I think this is over in 3 by some sort of TKO, and DC walks out on top, and that'll be good for the division because it opens it up again. If they both retired, maybe we get some type of tournament. I think there's a lot of opportunities. I think there's a lot of different scenarios that we could see going forward, but this will kind of clear up things for the heavyweight division, and then we'll have a new direction going forward with us crowding, the greatest of all time. 36 minutes. It's the over. And I did cut it short, but I did it. I appreciate it. We'll be back soon. Hopefully it'll be both of us. It was a pleasure talking to y'all. Take care.